Hey, welcome to Russ Can't Fly. Yo, Russ, you got that license yet, yo? Come on, man. Okay, so before I get over to the airport and practice my maneuvers.
What are we talking about? Practice? We're talking about practice, man. We're talking about practice. We're talking about practice. We ain't talking about the game. We're talking about practice, man.
I want to give some. I had to put that in there. That's a classic, is it not? Anyway, yes, practice. I gotta practice because practice makes perfect. But at any rate, before I get over and practice, I want to give some subscriber shout outs because, again, subscribers mean everything to me. This has been a long couple years, and without subscribers supporting me, giving me comments, giving me suggestions, all that kind of stuff, I couldn't have done it without you. So that's why I do these shout outs. So let me give subscriber shout outs to James Burgess, Algorithm Music, and Christine Convery. Christine, what's up? Thanks for subscribing to the channel. Algorithm Music and James, thank you all for subscribing to the channel. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. Every little bit of support has made the difference between me wanting to give up, especially during this COVID time. But I have stayed on and I'm running on. I'm gonna see what the end's gonna be. All right, anyway, let's get over there. It's time to practice.
Wings Field, Cessna 614, Foxtrot Alpha, taxiing from the upper ramp for runway 24, Wings.
Now, I don't want anybody to think that I was trying to make fun of my man, Allen Iverson. He is one of my favorite all-time basketball players, and I've got a chance to meet him a couple times. Just an amazing young man, and I'm glad to see, how his life has turned out and all the things he's done. But I had to put that practice clip in there because that's what this is going to be all about. These next, I would say 3, 4, 5 videos are going to be about me practicing the maneuvers. I've got to get these maneuvers down because I am quickly heading towards a check ride. And I got to tell you, for those who don't know, the check ride is the actual exam that I'll be taking to become a licensed pilot. And just as I tweeted, I guess some 6 months ago, that 2021 would be the time that I would get my license, well, it looks like that is a real possibility because this summer I am going to be doing my check ride. It's been a part of my CFI, and I have been having a lot of those types of conversations, and so I've got to get these maneuvers under my belt. And not only do I have to do them, I have to do them according to certain specs. And so that's what this practice is going to be all about. So let's get to it, and I'll tell you what those specs are as I'm doing these maneuvers.
Wings traffic, Cessna 614, Foxtrot Alpha, departing runway 24 out to the north, Wings.
So one of the things that I did cut out of this video just for time is every time I take off, or before I take off, I go through emergency procedures. What happens if that engine quits? If we're on the ground, we have runway left, we don't have runway left. Got to do that every time I fly now.
All right, trim is set for takeoff. Fuel tank is on both. Mixture is full rich. We are good to go. We are on 24. Got 24 on the heading and on the compass. Heels to the floor. Full power. Engine instruments are in the green. Oil temp, oil pressure, vacuum all look good. Airspeed is alive. Looking for our rotation speed. Got it. And let's rotate.
Heard me do these call outs before. Heels to the floor, engine instruments in the green, full power, oil pressure, oil temp all look good. Believe it or not, that is all the types of call outs I will again need to do on the check ride. So I try to do and try to be consistent with these types of things so that they're automatic when I take my check ride, because I'm sure I'm going to be freaking out. I'm already freaking out, and it's like the check ride's not even on the horizon right now. But you know, it's one of those things where I want to make sure that the less I can have cluttering my mind, the better. So that's what these call outs are about. They're not just niceties, they are good things to communicate so that I can understand that the plane is in good working order before that thing comes off the runway. Because if there's an oil pressure issue, you want to shut that bad boy down and get off the runway.
Get into slow flight.
All right, let's get into slow flight. All right, so before we do that, I want to do some, so I want to configure and,
Wing traffic 0205 control.
Do your clearing turns first.
do my clearing turns.
Left base.
Remember, try and stay at this altitude.
I have to get better at multitasking. As soon as he said do clearing turns, I began to lose altitude. And I can't do that on the check ride. I just have to get, better at maintaining my awareness and multitasking, putting it all together. It's important.
Can you give me a right turn to 060?
Right turn is 060.
Yeah, I got you. You
Try to stay level 2,900, okay? Can we climb up to 3,400?
3,400.
While you're doing this, could you give me a left turn to 270?
Left turn 270.
So there are a few things that, I can be a little off on, but clearing turns, non-negotiable. I have to do those before I do any maneuver, and I absolutely have to remind myself, which I'm doing right now. Russ, remember, before you do any maneuver, do clearing turns first, unless the DPE says you don't have to do them. All right, carry on.
270. Right?
Oh, yeah, that's 2.
Good. Alright, let's get into a power off stall.
All right, power off stall. All right, so do you want me to do clearing turns?
No need.
All right, no need.
And on the check ride, don't even phrase it like that. Just
Okay.
start, just assume like, all right, clearing, just say clearing turns. And then like, in my experience, I say that, and then some of them will say like, oh, you don't need to, or
Okay.
they won't say anything, you just assume you do it, right?
Okay.
Just
Assume you do it, and say you're gonna do it, and then...
if they say no, then they say no, but...
Gotcha. All right, so I'm gonna descend down to 3,400 and do my stall there. All right, power to idle.
Runway.
Okay, so the ACS standard for a power off stall. So that's where basically I bring the power all the way back to idle and basically begin to have a real nose up attitude. The wings stall, which means they basically stop creating lift and the nose drops because the wings are no longer producing lift. Now, in order to do this maneuver correctly, I can't have more than 20 degrees of bank, and I can't lose more than 100 feet of altitude once the nose drops. So once that nose drop, I'm supposed to recover before I have lost 100 feet of altitude, and I can't go more than 20 degrees or plus or minus 10 degrees in my heading or bank. So very specific ACS standards. I think with this particular stall that you just saw, I only lost about 30 to 40 feet of altitude, so it wasn't bad. My slow flight was a little sloppy because you heard my CFI talk to me about my heading. I was supposed to be flying a 270 heading, and I was a little sloppy there. So, you know, gotta tighten that up. And, you know, I give it my CFI credit, and I love that he is very exacting. And I am understanding now why he's been so exacting during the course of our training, because these standards matter, and I want to do them within spec, because if not, I could fail, and that's not an option.
Let's do steep turns.
All right, steep turn. So I'm going to do
66 Whiskey number 2 and
clear
mile final 29
turns.
behind that Cessna on the approach run.
When you're doing your clearing turns for steep turns, find a spot to find a visual reference
Okay.
and use that.
Okay. I would like to do those towers.
So do them.
Okay.
You're good. You don't need to go all the way back there.
Okay, so as I go into my steep bank turn maneuver, the ACS standards are really interesting. So for this particular maneuver, you have to keep the turn at 45 degrees of bank, plus or minus 5 degrees. So you can go 50 or you can go 40 degrees. But if you go more than 5 degrees beyond 45 degrees, you're out of spec. Also, you have to keep the turn coordinated, which means you have to keep the ball in the center. That's another flight control. I'll probably talk about that in the next video. But you have to keep the turn coordinated. You have to keep your heading or bank plus or minus 10 degrees. You have to keep your speed within plus or minus 10 degrees of 10 knots. So in other words, if I am flying 90 knots, I can't go more than 100 on the top end or lower than 80 on the lower end. So it's got to be within plus or minus 10 knots, and you have to have plus or minus 100 feet of altitude. So just think XYZ axes. So it's not just turning the plane in 360 degrees. You have to make sure that your turn is consistent within plus or minus 5 degrees. You have to make sure your heading's consistent within plus or minus 10 degrees. You have to make sure your speed is consistent within plus or minus 10 degrees. And you have to make sure your altitude is consistent within plus or minus 100 degrees. That, ladies and gentlemen, are the ACS standards for just the steep bank turn. And people wonder why I am freaking out about this check ride. It is just crazy. But at any rate, I think what I want to do is, so we did some other maneuvers in this video. I think because it's going to get a little longer and I'm explaining the ACS standards for each of the maneuvers, I'm going to hold off on the other maneuvers and focus on that for the next Upload Friday, the next week. So in that video, we'll focus more on short field, soft field, that kind of thing, and really dig into ACS standards in those videos. So thank you for allowing me to do this, because it's helping me understand what the standards are. Whew. Okay, so one thing about practice, sometimes it can be frustrating, sometimes it could be, you know, very enjoyable. That was a mixed bag, because I'm getting closer to check ride. It's the thing that's like looming the most on my mind. And so when I do something and it's not to spec, I get a little worried, like, man, am I ever gonna be able to do this? But I'm gonna keep practicing. I'm gonna get this down. I'm gonna make it happen, because little birdie says my check ride may be coming up in July, and it's freaking me out. But anyway, yeah, you know, I've got to call the DPE and see what's going on there. But yeah, we might actually be scheduling a check ride. So that's why this practice is so important. So hopefully people don't get too bored from seeing the same things over and over again. But I have to show that some of these maneuvers I have to do over and over again in order to get the Airman Certification Standards, or the ACS, correct. Got to be so many feet, so many feet in terms of altitude you can gain or lose, so much speed. It has to be within spec. And yeah, of course, if it's only 100 feet of altitude you can lose or gain, and if I do 110 feet and I correct it really quick, is it an automatic failure? Maybe not. But the thing about it is, what if I do that and then my turns around a point, I don't keep my speed, and then on the steep turns I don't do the correct altitudes? Those things could build up, and the DPE could say, this dude really is just kind of inconsistent with all of his maneuvers. It's different little things here. Maybe not ready. I don't want to fail, and I'm not going to. So anyway, I'm going to keep practicing, because practice does make perfect. I thank you for joining me on this journey. If you have not subscribed to the channel, I would ask that you do so. I really do appreciate the support. It means so much to me, because I am going to get my license this summer. Hopefully July. I'm going to get my license this summer. Anyway, don't forget to subscribe. Hit the thumbs up button on this video. I definitely appreciate the support. You guys are awesome. Russ Kid, Russ Can Fly. I'm out. See ya.